I just spent the last hour vibe coding up 3 apps that are almost ready to go into production. Now in this video, I'm going to show you the tool that I use to do that and walk you through some of the best practices and strategies that I follow when I'm vibe coding to actually get a good result. Now on screen, you can see one of the apps that I created. It's kind of like a roadmap tracker for computer science students or people that are trying to get a job. Lets you track, for example, your interviews, store all of the resources that you've used, different roadmaps, etc. Now again, it's not perfect. You'll see a few visual bugs and a few mistakes, but for 20 minutes, which is how long I spent on each of these projects, I think that it's pretty impressive. So with that said, let me hop over to the tool, introduce that to you, and then start giving you some best practices and tips and advice for when you are vibe coding so that you can create things like this. So the tool that I use to create the applications that you're going to see in this video is called DeepAgent. Now this comes from Abacus AI, and it's a part of the ChatLLM team's subscription. Now Abacus AI is a long-term sponsor of this channel. I've done many videos talking about DeepAgent, and while it can do code generation like you'll see in this video, generally speaking, it's just a very powerful agent that can handle a bunch of different tasks, and it's been getting upgraded significantly. Now if you do want to actually use DeepAgent, this is paid. You cannot use it for free. In order to use this, you would have to pay a minimum of $10 per month. That's the ChatLLM team subscription, but that will give you access to a bunch of other features as well. And then if you really want to use it and get a bunch of credits, you could upgrade that account to $20 per month, which is the one that I'm using in this video. Just being transparent, that's how it works, and it makes sense to me that you need to pay for it considering how long it takes to run, how many things it actually does, and the fact that it can literally create entire projects from a single prompt. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly show you kind of what the ChatLLM team's platform looks like so you get an idea, and then I'm going to go into DeepAgent and show you the 3 apps that I made. Okay, so this is what ChatLLM Teams looks like. Now I made a whole video on this, but the point is that you can essentially pay $10 per month and you can get access to all of the top models without having to pay for multiple subscriptions. So you can just type something in here, hello world, whatever, and it will use whatever the appropriate model is. Or you can just manually change and choose whatever model it is that you want to use here and then just start using that, okay? There's a bunch of other features. I made a whole video on it, but this subscription comes with DeepAgent. So if you go over to DeepAgent, this is a much more complex agent that is capable of handling just much more complex tasks. You can see that I've used it actually quite a bit recently, and it can create a ton of wild stuff. I'll throw a few examples on screen right now while I'm talking. The main differentiator that I see here is that this automatically handles the deployment, the databases, the configurations, the domains, and it also has a built-in computer. So DeepAgent actually can spin up a virtual machine and it can test software directly on a real computer rather than just purely writing a bunch of code. This is web-based, you don't need to download this, and you don't need a powerful machine to use it. Okay, so I'm gonna start going through the apps that I built. I'm gonna start with my sponsorship management system. Let me pull it up right here. Okay, so this is the first app that I vibe coded. Now this has full authentication. You can see this account. I just got it to make me a demo account, so it has some data already in here. You'll see that there's things like profile settings, preferences, and then of course we can sign out, so the authentication does actually work. And the point here is that I wanted to create a platform that can manage all of my sponsorship deals, see which ones I've invoiced, which ones I'm still working on, and then give me a whole activity log of kind of everything that's happened and allow multiple users to manage the same organization. So you can see this looks like a fully functioning site. Now, of course, there's going to be a few small bugs and stuff because I didn't spend hours like working on this, but you can see that we can create a new deal, right? We can view the deal, we can edit the deals that we have, we can change their statuses to, for example, in progress. And then when we do that, we can go back to our dashboard. We can see that everything will get updated here. We can go and we can track all of our invoices, see which ones have been paid, which ones are overdue, total amount of money. We can check reports and we can download the reports, right? And we can see all of the deal statuses, average deal value, etc. And then we have activity, right? So I can go here and I can see all of the stuff that's happened and all of the changes that people have made, which is pretty important. And then we'd be able to manage the team, settings, etc. And you can see all the users, the admins, the editors. And this came pretty much from a single prompt. There was a few revisions I had to make, but let me show you what that looked like. So what I did in order to generate this is I went to DeepAgent. Let me just scroll up here, and I gave it this really, really long prompt. Now I'm going to explain to you how to come up with these prompts because that's the important part, right? Really the results that you're going to get are dependent on how good of a prompt that you use. Now what I'm actually using right now is something called Whisper. Now Whisper allows me actually just to use my voice and dictate directly into the computer. So for example, I'll start it right now. Hey Whisper, can you give me a quick demo and just show that this is working? And then you'll see that it just dictates and goes directly into the text box. So what I actually did to come up with this super long prompt that I'm going to show you in 1 second is I went to ChatLLM Teams, so just the base thing, if I can open up the right window. I dictated just exactly what I want. So I just talked into the mic for like 5 minutes saying, this is the tool I want, these are the features I want, this is what I want to build. Okay, help me refine this so that I can now pass this to an LLM, tell it that it's supposed to come up with a design document, for example, and just make a way better, more refined prompt. So again, I opened Whisper, I said, hey, this is what I want. Then I just went here, ran it, and then it gave me a refined prompt. Now I'm going to show you what that prompt looks like. So let me pull it up right here. So this is the prompt, right? So importantly, I said, you are acting as a senior system architect and full stack engineer. This is your task. I want you to design this. And then again, all of this was generated by the AI based on everything that I asked it to do. Now, the important thing is that I instructed it to make sure that it thought as a professional architect, came up with a really detailed plan, and didn't start coding anything until the plan was generated. So this is a really important thing that I always do whenever I'm using these vibe coding tools. I don't want it just to dive in and start doing stuff. I want to come up with a plan first to make sure that it seems sane before I spend a bunch of money or a bunch of time using these LLM models. So what I did, right, let's go back and find the correct tab because I have a million open, is I just pasted this prompt inside of here. Let's make it a little bit larger. Okay. And then it asked me a bunch of questions. So I answered these questions, right? What's the team size, etc. So I answered them right here. And then I told it, okay, start creating this plan, right? So it started creating it. And then it gave me this really detailed plan that we can see in the right-hand side. So I read through this. I made sure that everything looked good. It gave me the full like database tables, deals, invoices, etc. And of course, if you're not technical, you might not understand all of this, but the important part is that the model is at least coming up with a plan first. So it has a source of truth and it doesn't get too lost. It can then follow the plan and start building things out. So you can see if we scroll down here, there's a bunch of stuff. It created a design system for me, talked about all the features that we needed, etc., all of the technical considerations. And then what we did is I told it, okay, just go ahead and start with the implementation. And then it wrote a massive amount of code and tested all of it in the virtual machine that it has access to. So if I press this right here, it should actually open up the computer with like the live view and you can actually watch and see what the model is doing. So it just takes a second to load, but you can see like this is the computer that it actually has access to. It can run commands, open the browser, it can, modify all the files, whatever. Obviously nothing's happening right now because it's idle and it already did this task. But if this was happening in real time, you could actually watch it testing the project, running the commands, etc. And you can see all the stuff that it did, right? And then it creates a preview that you're able to view here, which I'll show you in a second. Now, the interesting thing is that it actually generates all of these files for you in this directory structure. So if you go through here, you can see we have the entire app. We have all the Prisma stuff, the scripts, the types. We have the components. We have the dashboard, etc. Right? We can go in here and we can view everything. And then obviously on the first run, it didn't work that well. So I said, hey, okay, it didn't work right away. And then I gave it a few other prompts. I was kind of debugging it in real time. The preview's not working, blah, 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 blah. And then eventually we got to this point where I asked it just create some demo data for me. So I'm able to actually run this in a demo. And then it gave me the ability to deploy this or view it in the preview. Now, if you view it in the preview, you can just view it right here in the sidebar. You can obviously test it out, make sure it's working, or you can deploy this. And when you deploy this, it actually puts it on a public URL. So in this case, I just used the default Abacus one. And then if I go to my browser, you can see this is the URL. So sponsors.abacus.ai/dashboard, right? And then I started messing around with it. You can see all the stuff that I already demoed to you. Now, you guys could actually go to this URL. It's public, like you could mess around with this right now. Keep in mind, it's not fully functional because, well, we didn't spend too much time on it. But there you go, right? And then, boom, we gave it a few more prompts, gave us the demo data, and we were able to sign in. So that's that. That's the first application. Now, the reason I was able to get to this point is because I started with a really, really good prompt, again, by spending a lot of time speaking into my microphone rather than actually typing it out so I can just say anything that I want without getting tired. Got that refined by the LLM, boom, and then sent that over here to DeepAgent, and then from there kind of just refined it, tested it, and made sure everything was working. And just in case you're curious, you can also, of course, view all of the code and the databases and stuff directly in this window. So if you wanted to, like, you can actually edit this, you can save the files, you can really dig into the code if you want. For me, though, I usually just let the LLM run through it, and then if there's a massive issue, I'll either download the code to my computer where I can debug it, or I will just work in the web browser here if I can find the particular file. You also can view the databases, for example. So in this case, we have like all of the deals, and we can see the schema and exactly what's inside of here. Cool, so that's app number 1. Let's move on to number 2. So for my second application, I wanted to make something related to computer science, tracking interviews, roadmaps, etc. Because you guys probably know I'm working on dev launch right now, and this is something we're doing manually for a lot of students. So what we did, or what I did with the vibe coding tool, is I kind of made this dashboard that tracks all the stuff you've been studying, streaks, the interviews that you have coming up, and is meant to just be like an all-in-one platform for tracking your progress and keeping kind of up to date with what you need to do related to landing a software job. So we got a bunch of stuff here, right? We can dive into the roadmaps. If I press into a particular roadmap, we can see all of the different stuff. Of course, we can change the progresses and stuff. If I go to the resource vault, you see that we have all these resources that we've saved. We can filter them. We can press into them or get the hyperlink. Then we have the interview tracking. So for here, again, you can put any interviews that you have coming up so that you can keep track of them. You can put the rounds, any video, the category. Then you can dive in here and you can view the details of this, right? Preparation notes, mark as completed, cancel the interview, etc. So there's a lot of different features there. And then of course, analytics for kind of tracking everything that you've done. So you can see how much you worked on every single day, your top skills, learning insights. A lot of this is just kind of stub data, like it's not all fully functioning right now, but you kind of get the idea. You have a profile, and I'm pretty surprised how well it was able to make this again in just a few prompts, especially with all the animations and stuff, because I think it looks pretty cool. Okay, so that's the app. Now, again, this took about 20 minutes. If we come back here, you can see we kind of start with the big prompt again. I want to open it again so you guys can see what it looks like. And I followed the exact same format as before. I'll also make this available in the link in the description in case you guys want to check it out. But I said same thing. You're acting as a senior system architect and full stack engineer. Your task is to design and eventually help build a roadmap and interview tracker tool. And then it came up with all of the features. And this is all stuff based on what I said into this whisper tool, right? It's just a dictation tool that you can download on your computer. And then ChatLLM gave me this refined prompt. Really good. Give it to Abacus or give it to DeepAgent here, and then boom, it can start generating stuff. So again, it asked me some questions, so I answered just a few of them. Started with the design document, which we can view right here, which again is what I always suggest for a best practice. Read through this, make sure that it kind of makes sense, or at least it came up with a very detailed plan, as you can see that it did, right? So there's a lot of stuff here. And then we started diving into it. I told it, okay, begin the implementation. So please proceed to implement all of this. And then it just went crazy and started doing all of this. So it wrote, hundreds of code files, did a bunch of commands, tested stuff out. There was a few issues, right? It's not allowing me to sign in when I use the correct password. We debug it, and then I just go through and debug this for a few minutes, and eventually we get the final result. Okay, so that's the next one. And now I want to move on to a completely different type of application that is not purely in the browser. Because yes, the advantage of Abacus is that I can just press a single button, and actually I'll show you here. You can view like all your projects, you can deploy them, you can view the database, the domains, etc. But I wanted to see, can this actually do something that's not web-based, right? That's not simply something that's running in your browser. Because a lot of these tools only work for websites. I wanted to try something a little bit different. So let's close this. The next project that I got this to make for me is actually a VS Code extension. Let me show you what that looks like. So as I mentioned, I wanted to make a VS Code extension. So I decided, why don't I make an extension that tracks the amount of dev time that I have based on different projects, based on what I'm doing, and kind of the languages that I'm using. So you can see that's kind of what it did. Now, obviously I haven't used it too much, so the stats don't look that great, but you can see that it says the top project I worked on for 5 minutes was voice agent. This is the top language I was working in, and then it actually breaks down the activities based on what type of code I was writing and where I was working. So I was doing some testing, I was doing some general coding, as it says right here. And then if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, we have this little dev time kind of widget that opens this up for us so we can actually view it. And then if you go to the command palette, we actually have the dev time, commands. So we can view a monthly report, export the time, reset all the time, show the weekly report, toggle the time tracking, so on or off. And yes, this is simple, but I thought this was pretty cool that I was actually able to generate a fully functioning VS Code extension and have it work. So in this case, what I did is I had Abacus, or DeepAgent, I should say, create all of the code. I then downloaded it to my computer. I started kind of reading through some of it, making sure that everything was working. And then I was debugging it directly from VS Code. So if you don't know, the way you build a VS Code extension is by debugging it in VS Code. So this is kind of the logs you can see here for this extension. Okay. And if we go back to the kind of chat window, I'll show you what that looked like. So again, I went up here, I gave it a nice big long prompt, which you can download from the link in the description. It asked me a bunch of questions. I answered the questions. I actually used AI to help me answer these questions. And then it started coming up with the plan. So same thing. We got the plan. I made sure that everything looked good. And then I asked it to proceed with the implementation. Now, once it implemented this, because it was a VS Code extension, I honestly didn't actually know how to run it. So I had to ask this, how do I test this on my computer? And then it gave me the detailed install steps here so that I was able to actually test this out. Now, of course, there's a few commands, but in my case, I was still a little bit confused. So I continued to ask it I need better instructions. So it gave me some more detailed instructions here. And then eventually I got it to work, tested it out. There was a few bugs. We fixed that. And I was able to just download all of the code because it gives you everything. So if you click this, you can just download a zip folder. And then I was able to run it directly on my computer. So that's it. That was my vibe coding session using DeepAgent. Just wanted to show you guys a few things that I built here, go over some best practices, share with you how I did this, and the fact that you can actually use this type of agent for some pretty massive amount of code generation and create some pretty cool apps. Let me know what you guys are vibe coding, if you enjoy this, if this is something you've been doing in your spare time. I want to make it clear, this is not for professional developers, right? Like eventually, if you want to go to market or you want to push a product out there, we still need devs. We still need everything to be perfect. There's a lot more work that I would need to do to actually get these into production, but like 70 or 80% of the base kind of gets laid for me. A lot of that hard work is done, and then I have a really solid start, or at least a demo that I can work off of, which for me saves a massive amount of time. I don't know how long it would take if I wanted to code one of these from scratch, probably 4, 5, 6 hours. And again, in about 20 minutes, I was able to create all 3 of these apps. So like 20 minutes for one, 20 minutes for the other, 20 minutes for the next. If you guys enjoy this type of video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.